Hello, everyone, and a very, very good morning to all of you. Thank you for joining us for the 16th episode of the IET India Digital Conversations, powered by the IET Future Tech Panel. Today is an auspicious day because we have the honor and privilege of having the legend, the visionary, the father of Indian IT and digital revolution, an IT honorary fellow, the founder of Infosys, Mr. R Narayana Murthy. Not often do you have an opportunity to host someone who needs no introduction, because whatever you say will always fall short of his persona. But I am so looking forward to Mr. Murthy sharing snippets from his lifelong learnings, as well as key insights on India's digital revolution and other thought leaders who will be sharing the stage and joining us today. So don't go anywhere and keep yourselves hooked onto the screens for the remaining 85 minutes. I'm your weekly host, Suman Bhaumik. I lead the events development for IET in India. Without wasting any more time, let us begin the proceedings for today with some necessary introductions of the people without whom this wouldn't be a possibility. So allow me to welcome and introduce Shekhar Sanyal, the country head and director of IET India, to begin this. Over to you, Shekhar. The screen is all yours.
Thank you, Suman. Thank you very much, and a warm welcome to all of you who are here today. As Suman said, it's quite an iconic day. We are working to create these platforms called the Digital Conversations. IET, as you know, is a professional society for engineers. We are starting to celebrate our 150 years of existence this year. It's a big year for us, and it's a big day today for us as well. I would invite you to be part of this exciting journey of the IET if you're still not part of it. There is so much to do, there is so much to impact. And as engineers, thinkers, and leaders, it makes great sense for you to come onto this neutral platform, which allows you to do your best using the platform that is provided. It allows you to interact with leaders across the world. It allows you to create groups which can impact and make the change that you want to create. So with that, I would like to move on to the first speaker of the day. I'd like to invite Jim Morrish onto the stage. Jim is the advisor to the IET Future Tech Group. He has been advising us from the time we set up the IoT panel and has been a great guidance for in doing the work that we have been doing. So thank you, Jim, so much for what you have been doing and helping us. And without much ado, let's call on Jim to tell us about his thoughts.
Thank you for that very kind introduction, Shekhar. It's great to hear what you guys are doing with the IET. I've been involved in some way, shape, or form, I guess, for about 5 years now, and it's great to see how this has progressed and launch the IET Future Tech Panel. And I'm just going to talk about some of the big impacts to technology and the way the character of technology and service provision is changing at the moment. It's quite a significant change. First, let me just provide a quick bit of background. So my name's Jim Morrish. I'm a founding partner of a company called Transforma Insights, which is a new industry analyst firm focusing on IoT, artificial intelligence, blockchain, etc., all of the new and emerging technologies. And what I'm going to talk about today is trends in enterprise adoption of technology. It's no surprise that COVID is the number one consideration right now. So what I'm going to talk about specifically is the impact of COVID and how that's going to change the dynamics, because it's going to have quite a significant impact not only in the current year, but in future years and in trends over time. So let's just start off with some top level impacts here. There's a reduced overall consumer demand. Caused by COVID, caused by people not going out, caused by people earning less money, caused by the disruption to work, etc. So that's a short-term impact, which is happening in real time right now. There will be increased demand for some products, and I'll come back to that and discuss how some of that comes about. There's another impact which is around slow corporate decisions, uncertainty in a corporate environment. There are furloughed staff, so not all the staff are in the office and available to take decisions. Some staff are working remotely, so you just can't get together so easily in meetings. There are some issues around cash flows and revenues falling, and people uncertainty around cash flows. That's actually holding up some deployments of technologies at the moment. And there are also challenges with implementation. Just the flexibility to send people out into a field, into the field, and deploy technologies. There's less flexibility to do that. Offices, premises may be closed. The social distancing, etc. So there are some significant significant impacts. However, I just want to say up front, and I'll come back to it at the end, that the overall impact of COVID, and a number of people have said this, is that the result of COVID will be that 5 years of technology development will happen in 5 months. So we're having a huge acceleration of the way that people are approaching business, doing business, and the technology, and the way that they're using technology to support business. So what I'm going to do is talk about some of the top applications, some of the most important connected devices. I'm going to focus on IoT first, basically, looking at the top categories of connected devices. So connected vehicles, obviously, huge impact to sales of connected vehicles. The sales of vehicles are down 90% in some markets in the hardest hit quarter of COVID. Longer term, this is going to return to the previous trend. And there's going to be, and one element of it is going to be accelerated, and that's the over-the-top monitoring for enterprises, or vehicles supporting enterprises. So that's going to be accelerated. White goods, depressed sales. There's going to be more associated monitoring with white goods deployed in an enterprise environment. So think things like monitored coffee points in office buildings. So monitored in terms of stock levels and buttons, just to top up. Press the button when the coffee runs out and the coffee's ordered. It saves somebody going around and checking that location. Monitoring of the cleaning of those locations to check they're being cleaned regularly. So there's going to be associated connectivity driven just to maintain that cleaner overall environment, and maintain COVID compliance and cleanliness compliance. Real world virtualization in terms of connected headsets, and VR headsets and so on. That's been accelerated actually in the short term. It's all those home workers and people sitting at home playing on their Xboxes and various other devices. That's accelerated that. In the medium term, though, and in an enterprise environment, there's going to be a strong acceleration there. Real world virtualization and augmented reality and AR headsets can support field engineers, so they can provide remote backup and more experienced and second and third level support information directly in the field of vision of the on-site engineer. Clearly, that's a very beneficial thing in the case of COVID, and potentially it's a tool for advising customers and end users to service their own machinery without calling out a field engineer, and that's a very beneficial thing in a post-COVID world. There's possibilities for remote quality control, so quality control of production lines can be completely geographically separated from the production line, and in fact, this is happening at the moment. So chips and chip wafers being manufactured in Taiwan are actually being monitored and quality controlled from the UK. And there's in some certain situations, and there's a connection between the two. It's AR, VR based. Hands-free monitoring, and own, people can have their own control panels of devices if they have an AR interface to that device. A few categories have a sort of slightly more obvious impact, I guess. So you've got access control and intercoms. There's that's going to be slowed. There's a lack of workforce or lack of mobile workforce and access to deploy it. There's going to be a strong acceleration of that. We'll come back to that later. in post-COVID, just in terms of monitoring social distancing. Personal assistant robots, there's a slight slowing of these, and there's going to be no significant change in the deployment of personal assistance robots in the medium term, except potentially in hotels and restaurants where there potentially is going to be automated delivery, and this is happening already, in fact, particularly in China, where there are robots will deliver room service. It just takes the personal contact out of that completely. Lighting, connected lighting, there's going to be a significant slowing due to issues of access to buildings and so on. Medium term, there's potential for incorporating that into space monitoring solutions and population density monitoring solutions in closed spaces. So there's a potential there for that to be reinvented post-COVID, and that deployment could be quite significantly accelerated. Personal monitoring and tracking, slight slowing of that in the short term, but of course, this is going to be overall acceleration post-COVID. We're looking at, you're looking at the need for solutions to maintain social distancing between different people, and obviously there's a technological solution to do that, and the technological dedicated device version of monitoring social distancing does work a lot better than the mobile phone-based equivalents that various governments and Google and Apple have been experimenting with. Building automation, significant slowing just in terms of the difficulty of deploying this stuff at the moment. Medium term overall acceleration, plus COVID related solutions in terms of space monitoring, HVAC or heating, ventilation, air conditioning, basic same dynamics, asset tracking, monitoring, big short term slowdown in terms of the monitored assets and newly connected workforce. That's going to accelerate in the medium term. So what I'm going through here in general is a whole series of different applications which are having a short-term slowdown, and I've described some of the generic impacts and the generic trends and factors which are driving that. But then they come back and they either return to the previous trend because the underlying latent demand for these things is there, or they actually accelerate because there's a new dimension of demand and an incremental extra, or in some cases there's a completely transformational demand that comes about because of COVID. And this is consistent with that statement up at the front, around 5 years of development happening within 5 months. So overall there's going to be acceleration, and that's focusing particularly on connected devices. What I want to do now, though, is move to focus on healthcare and a COVID impact on healthcare. Now, you're going to say, the first thing you're going to say is, well, of course, COVID is going to have an impact on healthcare. But actually, there's quite an interesting impact on healthcare, which isn't completely obvious initially. So historically, healthcare markets there have been two distinct healthcare markets historically. There have been vertical markets for healthcare. So this is post-diagnosis, professional healthcare, hospital situations, ambulances, treatment of disease once it's been diagnosed, etc. So that's one market, and that market is characterized by frankly a limited size. So if you think about ambulances, a connected ambulance is a fantastic thing in terms of being able to communicate the vital signs of a patient from the ambulance to the hospital, and it's a great benefit to the patient, to the ambulance crew, to the staff receiving the patient in the hospital. Huge benefits there. But the reality is there's one ambulance per between 10,000 to 25,000 people, depending on the country. Which really limits the size of the opportunity there. Not only that, but because these are post-diagnosis clinical solutions, there are clinical levels of regulation that need to be met. The levels of robustness, resilience. If things go wrong, people really can die. and therefore they had to be very robust and very well engineered. So it's effectively an industrial deployment situation in terms of the type of solution and overview and oversight that's needed, with a kind of critical level of of that solution associated with it, and a small market. So that's one healthcare market. The other traditional healthcare market has been health, or worried well. And these are things like connected bathroom scales and Fitbit tracking watches, and all of these multiple devices which people have to monitor their health and well-being. And these are sort of, I term these worried well solution. They're people who are well, but they're worried about their health. And the addressable market for those things is individuals and households. So that's people and population and households. And obviously, in India, there's 1.4 billion people and there's 250 million households. So there's a much bigger addressable market there. There are no commitments in terms of level of performance. It's mostly best efforts, and they're consumer devices, tightly integrated devices, high volume, and relatively simple applications behind them with a much lower necessary level of performance. So those are the two historic healthcare markets which have existed for years, decades, in fact. Well, decades in the case of clinical healthcare, maybe a decade in the case of worried well healthcare. The COVID markets, however, sit between those two things, because if you're looking at employee monitoring and distance monitoring between employees, the addressable market is every employee in the country that goes into an office or potentially even works in the field or outdoors to maintain their social distancing with other employees and customers and so on. So the addressable market is much bigger for these COVID solutions. And also there are elements of industrial dimension to the deployment. It's not as critical as a healthcare deployment, but these must be centrally monitored and overseen solutions, and they must meet certain grades of service, certain quality of service, and certain SLAs. So what you've got there is a big emerging market. So for a traditional clinical healthcare provider, this is suddenly a huge opportunity to address a much bigger market. For someone who's traditionally been a provider of worried well solutions, it's an opportunity to provide something more formal. So it's a big opportunity. So COVID-19 related opportunities. There's quite a few of these specific things: social distancing and contact tracing, proximity sensing and wearables, space management solutions, symptoms in terms of overlaying AI on top of CCTV, which is IoT enabled, air quality monitoring solutions, in terms of the humidity and recirculation within building, sanitization management and control within buildings, specific solutions for that, detection of symptoms using sensing cameras and so on, mobile phone-based tracking. There are some applications and some opportunities in there, although they don't work so well. And of course, there are indirect opportunities. So two companies to note, or particularly noteworthy: Senra, the LoRa operator within India. They're offering their services for free to customers to provide to deploy COVID-19 solutions, and PTC, they're offering many of their services for free during the outbreak. What I'm going to do now is given that we've got a slightly dynamic agenda here. So what I've been through there is basically impacts to Internet of Things, and just very quickly, what I'm going to run through now is some of the impacts to other technologies. So looking at artificial intelligence, I mean, this is always one of the most impactful of currently emerging new technologies. A lot of potential for that to assist with the optimization of systems and operations, behavior analysis and supply chain and pricing optimization in a post-COVID-19 world, and also re-optimization of existing operations and processes given new constraints of COVID. In terms of robotic process automation, these applications have a relatively quick payback, and many companies will be looking to ways to minimize disruption due to employee absence. So RPA is to is top of the list there. Distributed ledger. In many ways, this is a technology looking for a killer application still. However, there are definite opportunities for distributed ledger in supply chain environments, and the more complex and more diverse the supply chain, the more of an opportunity there is for distributed ledger. And this is one of the impacts of COVID is a desire to diversify supply chains and to monitor.
Yes, now your audio is
so there's going to be an opportunity for distributed ledger there.
Thank you.
Data sharing, there's going to have to be a lot of thinking about data sharing between various parties, particularly to support these supply chains, and particularly to monitor, give them more close monitoring in a post-COVID world, and that includes things like interoperability for digital twins and standards in a digital twins environment, and also trustworthiness of exchange data. So if somebody gives you a piece of data, what level of reliance can you place on that data? How trustworthy is it? Product lifecycle management is going to be key. I mean, that's already deeply embedded into the design stage of products. And in a post-COVID world, extending that into production and the configuration of production and how production stations are set out and how employees work and move around is going to be critical, and also providing things as a service, remote monitoring, remote maintenance, human machine interface. I've mentioned about VR, AR, etc. So there's a lot of things. I could talk frankly for a good long time about these things. However, I've been given about 5 minutes, so I'll wrap up now. So conclusions for India. So we've seen a lot of dynamics there. I'm going to revert to that statement that I mentioned up at the front. 5 years of development in 5 months. So things, there's a temporary hiatus now. Things are really going to accelerate after that and diversify. Some specifics. Watch for the risks of re-onshoring. So RPA, robotic process automation, and Western companies looking to re-onshore solutions. There's a risk of that. The counter to that, I'm sure that Narayan can talk to you at great length about this, but I would say that it's more around positioning as outsourcing as a service, not just providing resources to execute a process, is the defense to that. There are new offshoring opportunities around. I've mentioned QA for manufacturing. That doesn't have to happen near the manufacturing plant anymore. AI can monitor the manufacturing location, and any exceptions can be escalated and monitored and decided on at a remote location. A more prosaic thing that's going to be a surprise to many of my colleagues in the UK is all of these people who've discovered that they can work from home in Western markets perfectly efficiently. Well, if they can work from home in a Western market, they can work from home in anywhere on the planet. And I haven't quite realized that yet. So there's going to be a lot of offshoring opportunities coming when people put those two pieces together in Western markets. Software will be key. Geography less important. You know well, I mean, you guys as a community, that it doesn't matter where software is developed. The overall market is migrating towards a situation where there's a greater share of value in software and software maintenance, and there's less emphasis on hardware. Hardware is the enabler, software is the bit that really matters. So there's that change, and it's being accelerated by COVID. So I think the thought that I want to leave you with is that overall, given these COVID dynamics, supply chains, I think, got a bit less global. So there's more of an emphasis on onshoring and a more of an emphasis on diversifying through the supply chain. So supply chains for physical things just got a bit less global. But software and services just got quite a lot more global. And I think that's great news for India. So I think there's a huge opportunity here.
Thank you so much for doing this with us. I'd like to hand this over back to you, Shekhar and Rishi, to take this forward.
Yeah. Sir, thank you very much. This is Rishi Bhatnagar, Chairman, Future Tech Panel. I had visited you and took your guidance number of times. People want to hear you more than me, so I don't want to take time. We started in 2015, sir, with a vision to evangelize Internet of Things. And we started with the IoT Congress. Four congresses have already happened. This year we started with a vision to make India a leader in future technology, and we felt that there can be no one better than you to guide us on how can we do that. Sir, I really thankful for you to sharing your time and your experiences with us. I'll now request Shekhar and you to please guide people. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rishi. Thank you, Jim. While we begin the session with the fireside chat with Shekhar and Mr. Murthy, I will have you guys backstage, with me.
So my first question, sir, is I think which everybody has is your views on the ongoing pandemic, which is there, but mostly what has changed in the world and what's the biggest impact that you see because of this?
Well, right from the first day of the lockdown on 22nd March or so, my view has been that we have to be prepared to live with the virus. There are three reasons. First of all, there is no vaccine. The earliest possible vaccine is from Oxford University, and that may be available in India anywhere from 6 to 9 months. But even if we are able to vaccinate 10 million people a day, it is going to take 140 days to vaccinate all Indians. That is a long period to prevent the spread of the disease. Second, there is no cure. There are lots of companies that are trying, but there is no cure. Third is, we cannot let the economy come to a halt. Already we have 140 million workers who have been affected by this virus. So the smartness, according to me, is to define a new normal. This normal should allow our economy to grow while bringing down the R factor and fighting the virus successfully. It should allow every player in every sector of our economy to operate at full steam with suitable precautions. It should allow us to work on enhancing the infrastructure for increased testing, improved care for the COVID patients, creating an infrastructure for vaccinating everybody after finding a vaccine, working towards a cure for the virus, and we should become very comfortable with social distancing and the use of masks and gloves. India has traditionally not invested sufficiently in public health. We have severe shortage of both in talent and in material for a robust public health care system. The state of our Indian Institutes of Public Health is a good data point. Further, we are not a disciplined nation. So social distancing and use of masks are not strictly followed. Therefore, under the circumstances, I believe we have done a decent job. The most important politician in the country, the Prime Minister, has taken direct charge of the situation. Therefore, I can say that the Indian government is doing the best it can. While the PM has become a role model for the nation in social distancing, from what I see on the TV, there is a lot of scope for our state level politicians to become role models in strictly following the rules of lockdown, like social distancing. Now, coming to the second part of your question, the global GDP has gone down, global trade has shrunk, global travel has almost dissipated. The global GDP is likely to shrink between 5% and 12%. India's GDP is expected to shrink by at least 5%. There is a fear that may even that we may even reach the lowest GDP since independence, since 1947. The tension between two major powers in the world, that is US and China, has escalated. The vaccine for COVID-19 is in the third trial, as I pointed out, and it's only one case among 155 companies working on it. On the domestic side, the government has realized the importance of restarting the economy and supporting MSMEs and low-wage workers. They have been spending as much as 10% of our GDP, about $300 billion on wages for low workers who have lost their jobs, on loan guarantees for MSMEs, and for creating the infrastructure for fighting the virus. I do not have data on how much of this amount has been actually disbursed. The industrial sector has restarted but has not picked up pace. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Right. Now, thank you, sir, for that overall insight into both from a pandemic perspective and the global perspective. Now, in this situation, what is your overarching strategic approach that you would be advising leaders to follow during this pandemic and after that to get back on track?
I believe that succeeding against the virus, in addition to being a technical issue which the scientists are handling, and I'm not competent to comment on it, is a management issue. There are several important projects to be identified and executed on time, within budget, and with the expected quality to win the fight against this virus. These tasks require good planning and excellent execution. Therefore, it requires scientific, public health, and managerial expertise. The tasks I would list are: 1. Getting back the 140 million migrant workers who have gone back to their villages, back from their villages to their workplaces, mostly in urban India, where they were adding value before the pandemic struck. That is the most important task. Second, increasing the number of hospital beds and adding equipment for testing and taking care of the projected number of patients for 3 months and 6 months from now. In other words, we had to estimate it for the next 3 months, we had to estimate it for the next 6 months. Even today, there is a severe shortage of COVID-19 care facilities in second tier and third tier towns. One of my own near relatives died in Hubli, which is the second or third largest town in Karnataka, because there were no hospital beds. This happened just 4-5 days ago. Amending laws and providing infrastructural facilities, if necessary, for companies which cannot use the work from home paradigm to move from 1 shift or 2 shift operations to 3 shifts operation, so that the production levels are maintained in factories while allowing social distancing. That's extremely important. Fourth, companies may want to shift as much of business enabler functions as possible in the work from home paradigm after defining work productivity standards. This cannot be, the number of workers cannot be more than 5 to 10% of our economy at best. It may be even lower. The government may want to increase the public transportation and public safety facilities for businesses and the public to operate 24 hours for these 3 shifts, if we really want that social distancing to take place. The government may want to provide very attractive financial support to MSMEs and ancillary companies that form the support system for the larger companies. The government may want to provide whatever assistance is needed for online classes and examinations to be held for the current year and perhaps for the next year. Industry bodies like CII, FICCI, and NASCOM may want to commission public health institutes to create training programs for these MSMEs to make their workers operate safely and productively. The boards of companies may want to include risk due to pandemics as an important risk factor and design solutions to work under the pandemic conditions. Since most developed economies have used up a sizable part of their financial resources to fight this virus, the export markets will become very cost conscious. Therefore, there will be a lot more foreign companies that will try to sell their products in India because of two major issues. One, anti-China feelings, and number two, because of Brexit. Therefore, Indian companies will have to become globally competitive and reduce their cost of operations through innovation, hard work, and improve work productivity. The government may like to commission public health institutions to design innovative solutions for people who live in crowded and not so clean environments to live safely and comfortably. I think these are somewhere around 10 or 12 things that the government can do, and we can all do. Yeah.
Sure. No, absolutely, sir. But would you have any additional advice for the IT industry as it weathers its challenge, and the advice to technology leaders beyond what you've just said?
Shekhar, I think this industry has weathered several challenges and come out successfully. For example, we managed the dot-com burst in 2001. We managed the financial crisis in 2008. What is important is to make our companies resilient and strong. This is the task of the leaders of the industry. Leaders must realize that there are three important attributes that bring longevity to any organization. They are competence, values, and goodwill of our society. Competence is sustained and strengthened by creating an environment of high aspiration, openness to new ideas, innovation, agility and adaptability, continuous training, meritocracy, hard work, constant feedback and action on that feedback, doing, fairness and transparency in every transaction with every stakeholder, taking unbiased decisions using data and facts, focus on imagination and innovation from every employee in the company, speed and excellence in execution. Values are sustained by leadership by example and telling stories about how the former leaders of the companies handled tough problems with sacrifice, hard work, and value based decisions. Leaders have to raise the hope, confidence, and faith of employees in the future of the company and the company's ability to fight this economic downturn due to this crisis. This is where I believe leadership by example and articulation become very important. The leaders have to reward good behavior by creating value champions in each department and showcasing them. Creating goodwill with the society in these difficult times is an important task of leadership since society contributes customers, employees, investors, vendor partners, bureaucrats, and politicians. The leaders have to steer their companies towards becoming good corporate citizens to earn society's goodwill. You do it by keeping the interest of the country and the society in your heart while taking every decision that you want to make. You contribute to the betterment of the poorer sections of the society by donating a small part of your profit. You work towards sustainability. You minimize emission of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. You economize on electricity and water. You contribute to organizations that enhance education, nutrition, and healthcare of poor children. You add value to higher educational institutions in the country by training them in your product. I would say that these are some of the things that IT industry can do.
Thank you, sir. I mean, the message is very clear. We have talked about how the government, what the government could do, what various industry bodies could do. We have looked at the IT industry and the leaders to do. As Indians, as common citizens of this country, what we should each citizen of this country to do to cope with this challenge and what's coming ahead?
Well, I am confident that a vaccine for this will be found perhaps by the end of this year. Oxford University and AstraZeneca, as I said before, are already in the third stage of the clinical trial. I'm told there are about 100 drugs being tried for the cure. As a world that found a cure for eradicating or slowing down the impact of TB, plague, HIV/AIDS, that's where I talk about slowing down, not cure. Malaria, polio, diabetes, high blood pressure, and umpteen other diseases. I have tremendous confidence in the scientists of the world. India may or may not be able to find a vaccine or cure to this virus by itself, but it has at least the capacity to produce the vaccine and the drugs for this virus in large quantities. On the social impact issue, we Indians have to accept that discipline in following the advice of the health experts is extremely important if we want to reduce the R factor quickly. Therefore, following the guidelines for social distancing and in using PPE are extremely important. On the economic impact issue, it is important to assume that COVID-19 situation is the new normal and operate to overcome the debilitating factors of this virus. I've already spoken about what the government has done. We, the citizens, have to use all those money very carefully because it is public money, because the government is helping us. Therefore, we cannot have corruption in this money. We cannot treat it as our own personal money and inflate expenses. Those are not good things to be done. Next, we have to accept working extra hours to overcome the loss of productivity in the last 4 or 5 months. Since the disposable income of consumers will be reduced due to the economic shrinking, we have to learn to work harder, become more innovative, and we have to improve our work productivity to reduce prices and to sustain and grow our revenue. Basically, we have to become highly concerned citizens of our country. We have to put the interests of the society ahead of our personal interests. We have to reduce our corruption. We have to be ready to work hard. I mean, somewhere I said we should be ready to work 60 hours a week. So these are some of the things that we need to do.
Right. And if we were to, because this is the IT and we've got lots of IT members listening to you right now,
Yeah.
what would your advice be to the IT and its members, essentially made up of engineers, who can support all this that you've talked about? What is their role that they should be playing currently?
No, first of all, I think IT members are well educated, they are elites, and they understand their responsibility better than most citizens of this country. So therefore, they have a few responsibilities that are more critical for the country. Therefore, they have to in some way demonstrate leadership, for example. Now, they have to spread the word that discipline in using masks and PPEs, personal protection equipment, will indeed reduce the R factor. I think that is our first duty as educated professionals. Second, we should not create panic and increase the tension for our elders at home. Third, we should popularize technologies like no touch thermometer and oximeter, etc., among our communities. We should take responsibility on teaching them how to use these technologies. Fourth, we have to help the poor and the less fortunate citizens by contributing to charities. We can help India economically if we operate as better and more productive professionals. That is a very important responsibility of ours because most Indians cannot add value in areas that we work. So therefore, the responsibility for improving the work productivity, the responsibility of making good the last 4 or 5 months, falls on our shoulders. We have to accept that the best management guru for us is global competition in the marketplace, and we have to learn to compete better and better and better. To do that, we have to benchmark our performance with the best global standard in every function that we are involved in. Some of us may be involved in production, some of us may be involved in quality, some of us in productivity, some of us in R&D, some of us in finance, some of us in HR, some of us in sales, branding, etc., etc. In every one of these, we have to benchmark ourselves with global productivity and then create a plan to move towards global productivity standards. Then we have to be, as I pointed out earlier, disciplined. We have to lead by example in discipline. We have to be ready to work hard. And we have to, as I pointed out earlier, improve our productivity. Just like Germans did after the Second World War, we too have to work extra hours so that we can recover from the losses influenced by COVID-19. We have to realize that every employee can innovate and invite them to participate in making the company even better. I don't know whether we have time. I will tell you, well, we don't have time. Let me not tell you the story. This is what we can do.
Uh, every crisis brings a set of opportunities. At times of problems, opportunities arise of that. What is the kind of opportunities you see out of this crisis? And what would be your advice to leaders, technology leaders, and other leaders to exploit these opportunities to make things better?
Well, most people see the context. Most people see things as they are and wonder why. I dream of things that never are and don't say why not. That, in essence, is what leadership is all about. This crisis, in my opinion, has provided many, many opportunities. Let me talk about a few of them. It has helped us to put in place the visa independent global delivery model. It is an improvement over the global delivery model. I conceptualized this VIGDM at Infosys in 2013. This model eliminates the need for our software professionals to travel to customer sites on H-1B visas. The leaders of IT companies have now accepted that we must maximize the value add from India. Companies, therefore, we use technologies like Zoom and whatever AirMeet and others, Google Meet and all of that, to facilitate interaction between their customers and their development staff in India. More and more of the development life cycle is being handled from India. That means there is going to be more and more job opportunities for our college graduates in IT companies. Since India-based companies cannot send engineers abroad due to the current situation, it gives us an opportunity for such companies to create jobs for local people in the market. This is an extremely important responsibility of Indian companies to create more and more jobs for uh, for the British people in Britain, for Americans in America, for Canadians in Canada, Japanese in Japan, etc. Since the cost of the software professional in India is much lower than in Europe or in the US, the overall cost of the software project will come down significantly because there is maximum value add from India. Therefore, our margins are likely to improve and we can become more competitive in the marketplace by leaving a part of that margin on the table for our customers. We take part of that savings, and the customer takes part of that savings. So Indian companies become even more competitive in the marketplace. This is also the first time that the leaders of the Indian IT companies, barring exceptions, are welcoming the large use of data communications technology in the development and maintenance lifecycle. Thus, there is a much greater appreciation by the leaders of the Indian IT companies to use technology not just in data communication, but even in areas like training and workflow software and decision making software. When you go down the line, sorry, no, that's where I will stop. Yeah.
Right. So we have got a fair insight into what you were talking about as to what people should do, what IT should do, what are the opportunities which are coming. Now, I would like to take you to a bit of your own personal experience and ask you that if you go down go down the memory lane, can you think of a situation where you were totally unprepared, like most people were when COVID hit us? And how did you navigate that situation? Can you draw any parallels to what we're experiencing now?
I think there are several situations for which we were unprepared. Loss of an important customer, a customer who was contributing 25% of our revenue. That took place in 1995. At that time, we did not have a risk identification and risk mitigation committee. Now we have a very robust risk identification and risk mitigation committee. We have lost huge projects to our competitors because we are not smart enough, and we learned a lot from that. We have lost some critical employees in the past. Now, these situations have taught us many lessons. First, to show more humility and learn from the mistakes that we committed. It made us analyze where we went wrong and correct those lacunae. It made us respect our competition even more and learn from them. It made us become more competitive by improving our productivity, value to our customers through innovation. It made us strengthen our risk recognition and risk mitigation system. Today, I believe there is a good risk recognition and mitigation system at Infosys, but I can guarantee you that even that system did not at all envisage the kind of havoc that has happened due to COVID-19.
Yeah, I don't think any of us did that, and we are all dealing with it, and it's teaching us a lot of lessons. Sir, I have come to the end of my questions. There is one question which I'd like to pick up from the audience, which has come because
we have 4 minutes. We have 4 minutes. Yeah.
So it is essentially about the youngsters who are coming out of universities now, this year or in the next year, and the kind of challenges they are facing in terms of getting placed in terms of employment or getting gainfully employed. What would your advice be to them as to how do they face their situation, this situation at this point of time?
Well, at least in my industry, that is not a big problem because we are quite used to working from home and we have been doing it for quite some time, but maybe to a smaller extent. However, you are right. In the case of the manufacturing industry, in the case of services industry, etc., it has impacted very heavily. The number of people that they recruit has reduced. What I would say is this, that they have to use the time between now and the time they get jobs by learning some skills that will be useful for them in the industry that they want to be part of. They have gotten the theoretical foundation in their from their education system. Now they have to start applying those theoretical principles that they learned in the classroom on in practical situations. For example, some of them could try and work pro bono in some places. Second, they could go back to their colleges and help the other students in succeeding because it's all now online. They can help the teacher in preparing better course material, in correcting the answers. I think there are many ways in which the youngsters can utilize the time that is available for becoming better professionals through knowledge acquisition, either in the classroom or in laboratories or as unpaid interns in the factories. That's what I would say.
Well, thank you so much, sir. I think that is a very sound advice to the youngsters. A lot of them are worrying about what's next, but this is a great way of utilizing their time to make themselves better skilled and better prepared. Thank you once again for your time. You're very kind. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Narayana Murthy, aside from the many accolades that he has, I'd also like to mention that he is in the first honorary fellow of the IET from India.
Thank you. Very kind. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, sir.
I will log off now.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So I think, Shekhar, we still have some time, and we can always have Jim and Dr. Rishi back on the stage.
Please do. It would be fabulous. There's some questions for Jim as well, which has
Yes.
So just call back And while we are waiting for Jim and Rishi to come back, I would like to again talk about that all the people who are attending and seeing us for the first time. This is the fabulous world of IET. This is the kind of conversations, this is the kind of focus that we have, this is where we want to go. And your participation in this whole mission of engineering a better world is something that we require. So do join us, do put in your ideas, tell us what you want, tell us what we should be doing, and we will be very happy to take that forward. Jim, Rishi, welcome back.
Thank you.
Jim,
Right.
there are a few questions, which some of the people have asked. Okay, so starting with the first one, Umesh has asked us, Jim, when we are using IoT and connecting health gadgets, how safe are the patient's data, and how can we ensure that they are not compromised?
Currently, part of a healthcare working group of the Future Tech panel under Rishi and Mr. Ravi Ramaswamy's guidance is actually put in place a framework where they can monitor ventilators remotely across the country where they're deployed, because one of the key assets that the government is deploying in the COVID situation is ventilators. And on the IT platform, we have created a framework which allows people to remote monitor where the ventilators, kind of asset management system, where the ventilators are they the right places, are they being utilized well or not? And that's currently ready, and it is ready for people to pick it up and run with it because it's open source. Rishi, would you like to add something on that?
No, Shekhar, you have mentioned about this. Maybe two things which I can add. I had a discussion with the Department of Telecommunication recently, and like GDPR in UK, India is going for the Data Security Act. Okay, and that's something which will provide a framework on the correct data and the data security part, which will, in the current scenario, you don't have a framework in India. Okay. The second thing, we are also defining with the National Accreditation Board of Healthcare this digital standards for healthcare. National standards for digital healthcare. Okay. So I'm part of that committee, and we are working for the first time in the world to create the national digital health standards. So people have started working on it, Shekhar. While from the IET perspective we are working, the government needs to provide a framework, legal framework, which is coming out for the GDPR. So the kind of data coming from machines, whether it's healthcare or anything, who owns that data, whether the data is accurate, what kind of testing has been done at device level, what are the testing done at the network level, so on and so forth. It's something which is now getting defined, and Act as well as standards are coming up, especially in the healthcare sector.
Great.
And one of them has been asked by Mr. Bhattacharya, is the Deputy Director General, Broadband India Forum. How are we proposing to handle the security challenge in the 50 billion IoT devices that are forecasted to be in India by 2025?
So, we have a cybersecurity panel under Arvind Tiwari ji in our overall working group. Suman, there are 4 ways in which the security challenges are handled. Okay. The first thing is on the legal framework side, where the government of India or the government of any nation needs to provide what are the security guidelines, so that any devices, any network, any platform needs to be tested. Okay, and there is a possibility of a certification required. So that's the first angle, where there is a legal framework available, and legal framework says this is what you are supposed to follow. These are the kind of tests you are supposed to do, and these are the kind of certification you are supposed to avail at different levels to get the security compliance done. The second part is the technology level, because IoT is a very different new thing. So what are the kind of security norms you're going to fit at a device level, at a network level, at an IT platform level, and a mobile level, so that you are able to technically handle it. Okay, and that's the second part where there's a major issue, because we don't know what all can be the possibilities or problems and how to handle that, and that's the technology availability and technology creation is something which is the second part for handling the security threats. The third part is, there can be a security threat that will occur. How will you handle it when it occurs? So there need to be a security operations center which is supposed to monitor in case something happens, and how will you react on it immediately. Okay, that's the third step. The fourth step is creating a skill. Okay, because we do not have skills available to handle in a new environment to handle security at different levels and end-to-end security for an IoT solution. The creation of skill itself is a big, major challenge. Okay, and there's a need for us to work on first the regulatory framework for security. Second, creating technology which can handle all of these things. Third, in case this happens, how the security operations will work. And the fourth, how to create skills for it. So I agree to Mr. Bhattacharya that it's a big challenge right now, and on all four areas there are work that is happening. Okay, so that we can work on it. But when 50 billion, I'm assuming before the 50 billion will touch, we'll have all these frameworks available. Right now, people are working towards technology and providing at different levels. Security operation centers are also available. The first step on the legal framework, as I said, the government of India is working on it. And the fourth skill, we need to work.
Rishi, that's.
Thank you, Dr. Rishi.
Thanks for that answer. And I think there's lots of work which needs to be done, and we hope that
Correct.
the Future Tech Panel and the cybersecurity wing of the work group will do its best. I think we have come to the end, haven't we? Are there any questions?
Yes. There are a few actually, but I think we can take one last question if that's okay with you and Dr. Rishi. This is again towards Dr. Rishi. Yeah, so it's been asked by Prashant Tripathi, who is the head of IoT for Prem Inter, Dr. Rishi, that we have IoT laws in California and Oregon in US to ensure security, but do we have similar laws in the Make in India thing?
So, Prashant, California is the only place in the world which came out with the IoT security law. Okay. Last year they came out. I have gone through that document. It was a well-defined ways, but to be honest, there were multiple things which were not present in that. Okay, so I had a review on it. As I said, India in 2018 there was a Sri Krishna committee that was formed that presented their report. Not formed was much earlier. They submitted their report. The cabinet has gone through, and it was supposed to be tabled in the parliament for approval. As part of that data security law that will come in India, there will be a data regulatory body that will be created. Something like SEBI or TRAI or IRDAI. There will be a data protection, data security regulator that will be coming up in India, which will be working and become a legal regulation provider. So India is working on it. As I said earlier, I personally had a meeting with the Honorable Minister, State Minister in Department of Telecommunication recently, and we were discussing about how soon we can see it. The response I got was very positive. He says he himself has gone through, and we can see the Data Protection Act getting tabled in the Parliament soon. So soon was the word that was given, but India has worked on it. We already have a framework that need to become a law. And we are just waiting for the Parliament to approve it.
I think with that we have actually come to the end of this session. Last few words from Shekhar and Rishi before we just say goodbye and thank you to everyone.
Rishi, I defer to you. You please go ahead.
No, honestly, Shekhar, it has been an honor. IET has given volunteers like us a platform where we could interact with a person with a stature like Narayana Murthy ji. The age in which I started my career, he was a legend at that time. Being on the same platform with a person of that stature is an honor. And I'm really very thankful to IET for providing people like me and my volunteer colleagues to get access to such an honorable person in the Indian IT industry. So, thank you very much to IET and your team for providing us this platform where we could hear directly from the person who led the IT revolution in India and made India such a big IT services or country. From him and his learning, we, our volunteer organization, IET Future Tech Panel, will be working and learn how we can make India a leader in the future technologies. Thank you, Shekhar and Suman, for organizing this.
Yeah, thank you, Rishi. It wouldn't have been possible without you and your guidance.
True.
So it was your vision which allowed us to reach there, while the actual work might have happened with us, but it was your vision which was guiding us. Actually, it was a fabulous session. One of the best to be reacting, whether we are business leaders or individual citizens, or we are students, as well as kind of a vision or a looking glass view of what's going to happen next and how we should get prepared for it. It's a great session. Lots to learn, lots to do, lots of things to imbibe and go forward. We will take all this into our learnings and try to implement them as we go forward. And finally, I'd like to thank our fabulous audience today who has been very patient and very kind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Have a great week ahead.